Back in April of 1994, some of the worst atrocities of the modern era broke out in the landlocked Central African country of Rwanda. To make a very complicated story short, the dominant tribe in Rwanda, the Hutu tribe, which controlled the government, had the majority of the population, for a bunch of different reasons, rose up under the direction of their leaders and attempted to exterminate the minority tribe in the nation called the Tutsis. And for 100 days, they did their best. They killed hundreds of thousands of them, more than 500,000 of them, many with machetes or burned alive or buried alive. And they raped even more than that. And not just raped, but literally corralled AIDS patients in AIDS hospitals and sent them out to rape Tutsi women and to affect them with HIV, which they did. It was horrifying. And as the details of what happened during what is now referred to as the Rwandan genocide filtered out to the rest of the world, people were stunned and nauseated by it and really bewildered that something like this could happen. Not that long after the most famous genocide in history in the 1940s in Europe, to which we'd all said, well, that could never happen again. Well, it did. A version of it did happen in Rwanda in 1994. But what was even more distressing and in some ways shocking was that the world knew it was happening as it happened and did nothing to stop it, and in most cases said nothing about it, even when it was in progress. From the very beginning, 4 days after the genocide in Rwanda started, a Swiss journalist in Kigali, the capital, published a piece in a French newspaper saying, I have interviewed 8 officials, and there's a genocide going on in Rwanda. This ran in a Western paper and then was picked up in other Western papers, but no one did anything. So the Red Cross knew it was happening. The UN knew it was happening. There were UN troops in Rwanda. The French government knew it was happening. There were French troops there. The nation of Israel knew it was happening. Israel had been a supporter of the Hutu government for decades. In fact, it seems pretty obvious that some of the bullets and grenades used to murder Tutsis were sold to the Hutu government by the Israelis. And in fact, there's some evidence, apparently, that the Israeli government sold weapons to the Hutu government during the genocide, which were used to murder Tutsis. We say apparently because the documents surrounding this have been classified. They're under seal per orders of an Israeli court on the grounds that were they to become public, it would be bad for Israel's image globally. So the Israelis knew, and the Clinton administration famously knew it was happening, but for domestic political reasons, didn't act to stop it. So the lesson is something horrible, in fact, genocide can happen. The world can know it's happening and allow it to happen. That's the lesson. And it's a lesson that a young Harvard law student called Samantha Power thought about a lot as she was getting her degree in Cambridge. How can a genocide take place within living memory of the Second World War and the civilized world does nothing about it? Well, in 2002, she published a book on that exact question. The book was called A Problem from Hell. It won the Pulitzer Prize and all kinds of other prizes. And Samantha Power's case was pretty simple. The world cannot allow genocide to happen again. If people find out this is happening, they have to act. That's the mark of civilization. Do you stop mass murder of civilians on ethnic grounds, genocide? And if you don't, then you're not civilized. The United States, she wrote, has a moral obligation to intervene with force if it determines that a genocide is underway. What's the point of having the world's largest military if you can't at least try to prevent a genocide? Well, as noted, she was lauded for this. The book changed her life. She became one of the most famous people in the world. And in a fairly short period of time, a close advisor to then candidate Barack Obama. He was elected in 2008 and promptly made her the chairman of the Atrocity Prevention Board. You may not have known such a thing existed, but it does. It's an interagency group. It still exists. Name slightly different. But its purpose is in the name, preventing atrocities, using the power of the U.S. government to prevent atrocities. Well, there weren't many well-publicized genocides during the first Obama term, but Samantha Power stuck around. She ended up teaching at Harvard Law School, and then Biden is elected or becomes president in 2020, and she goes back into the White House. At this point, she is the head of USAID, the United States Agency for International Development. She also has a seat on the National Security Council. She is a high-level foreign policy person in the Biden administration. Well, it just so happens that during her time there, the thing that she warned about, wrote about, actually happened. Another genocide. This one took place in Gaza, the territory that Israel has controlled, formerly part of Egypt, since 1967. And shortly after the attacks by Hamas into southern Israel in October of 2023, Israel decided to murder as many people as it possibly could in Gaza with the aim of getting the entire population to leave Gaza so Israel could take over Gaza. Now, we're not guessing about this because Israeli officials said out loud, this is our plan. And then they tried to do it. Two interesting things. Samantha Power, famous for opposing genocide, said not a word about this. Of course, by this point, 30 years after the Rwandan genocide, Samantha Power's view of genocide appeared to have changed. So the way to fight genocide really was to empower women and girls in the LGBT community. Fight the patriarchy. That's how you prevent genocide. But when an actual genocide occurred on her watch, as someone with a seat on the National Security Council, Samantha Power did and said nothing. She's now back at Harvard Law School, but she has actually been asked about this. You're the genocide lady, but you did nothing to stop genocide after writing a book scolding the rest of us for doing nothing to stop genocide? Why is that? She didn't respond well. I'm not here to answer questions like that, she said. You can look it up. It's an amazing exchange. What she did not say was, you're absolutely right. I wrote a book saying the civilized world can't allow genocide to happen, and then I allowed it to happen. But that's exactly what she did. But what's even more interesting is that she's not alone in this. Everybody knew from the first week after October 7th that Israel planned to commit genocide, traditionally defined genocide, targeting a population because of their bloodline and trying to exterminate or move them. Everyone knew this because Israel announced it. Twice in October of 2023, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said out loud in a public speech, the Palestinians are Amalek. Amalek, a reference that many in the West didn't get, but everyone in the region understood. And it's a reference to 1 Samuel 15. The first verses in it, which you should read, because it tells you a lot about what Israel's doing now. But those verses describe God's command to eliminate a tribe called the Amalekites. And not just the draft age men, but all of them, including children and infants. All of them. Kill all of them. Destroy all of their property. Slay all of their animals. This is God's command. So when Benjamin Netanyahu describes the Palestinians as Amalek twice in the first month of the Gaza operation, you don't need to guess what the point of this is. The point is to destroy every man, woman, and child and infant in Gaza. And they set about doing that. But it wasn't just Netanyahu who said that. It was a lot of different authorities in Israel. And in fact, as someone who's been keeping a list of this for a while, it might be worth reading them, just so everyone knows this isn't blood libel. It is true. On October 9th, so 3 days after the Hamas attacks, the defense minister of Israel, their own Pete Hegseth, described his plans for Gaza, not for Hamas, for the entire territory, for the over 2 million people who live there. And we're quoting, "No electricity, no food will be allowed in. We are fighting human animals." Not human beings, human animals. Well, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem that winter responded, not to say, whoa, settle down, defense minister. Calling your opponents animals is, of course, genocidal talk. No, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem thought he didn't go far enough. And he said this: they're not human animals. They're not human beings. They are subhuman. And then he said that the Palestinians of Gaza should be buried alive with bulldozers, which some ultimately apparently were. Ben Gvir, Matt Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition, carpet bomb. Cabinet ministers in Israel, supporters of Israel in the United States, making the same case in public from the very first day: kill indiscriminately, move them out. There were discussions on the American right about what we should do with those Gazans, the people who live there. Move them to other countries, Egypt, maybe even the United States. Get them out. Kill enough of them that the rest leave. The survivors want to flee. And so the aim was genocidal from the very first day. The Israelis announced it. Israel's supporters in the United States seconded it, amplified it. And members of the U.S. Congress on television, the people who are paying for this genocide, announced proudly, that's right. The Israelis have every right to kill civilians, and that's why we are paying them and giving them weapons to do so. Watch this.
I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians during World War II.
In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here.
Many people in this part of the world say what happened in Gaza does not align with Christian values. Killing children, killing mothers,
I'll be honest
killing
with
families
you.
who are not militants.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all.
Why?
Because what did we do in World War II? Did we think 1 minute about starving the Germans? Did we bomb every city into smithereens? So this is a war. No,
October 7th to World War II.
Yes, I am. This is an absolute existential threat to the Jewish people. We flattened Berlin. We flattened Tokyo. Were we wrong to drop an atomic bomb to end the Japanese reign of terror? Were we? So my view, if I were Israel, I would have probably done it the same way.
There are no innocent Palestinian civilians. We starved the Germans. We're proud of it. We dropped an atomic bomb on Japanese civilians. We're proud of it. The Israelis should do the same here. Now, if there's another definition of genocide, intentionally targeting the innocent for murder, it would be interesting to know what it is. Keep in mind, none of these people, Brian Mass from Florida, Randy Fine from Florida, in the end, of course, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, none of them even bothered to add the caveat, well, Hamas supporters. No. People who live next door to Hamas supporters, down the street from Hamas supporters, in the same region as Hamas supporters, Arabs, must be killed because they're Arabs. How is that any different from Hutu radio comparing the Tutsis to cockroaches? How is the net result different? Well, it's identical in both cases. How is it different? And this is an explicit violation of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, but it's also true. How is this different from what the Germans did to civilians in World War II? It's different in its scale, thankfully. Is it different in its intent? It's hard to see how. And if it is different, how? How is it different? Well, of course, it's not. It's the same thing. All of this, by the way, was going on with Samantha Power, not to beat up on poor Samantha Power. Clearly didn't sign up for this. She just wanted to talk about the empowerment of women and girls in the LGBT community. But how could you write a book on genocide or claim to oppose genocide or send money to a Holocaust memorial or talk about the Second World War at all and the atrocities against civilians and stand by, much less fund this while it happens? It's hard to understand. But not only have they being the supporters of the Israeli government, they've done both at the same time. Lecturing the world about why genocide is wrong, murdering the innocent is wrong, and they're right, and at the same time, bragging about those very same things in Gaza. Here is a now thankfully famous couple of tweets from Randy Fine of Florida, gloating about the murder of civilians in Gaza. The first is a picture of a dead child killed by the Israeli government that somebody put in his Twitter feed and asked basically, how can you sleep at night? And he says, quite well, actually, thanks for the pic, with an exclamation point. And the second is a story about starvation in Gaza, which is real and entirely manufactured by the Israeli government with the backstop of the American government. And Randy Fine, on seeing a picture of starving civilians, women and children, writes, "Starve away. Starve away." So here you have sitting members of the United States Congress not simply denying genocide, but encouraging it, gloating over it, celebrating it. How did this happen? How did the rest of the United States stand by and allow the federal government to take its tax dollars to fund this? Israel could do none of this by itself. Of course, it couldn't exist without U.S. tax dollars. It would be destroyed by its enemies. There's no question about that. So how exactly have members of Congress been allowed not simply to fund, but to celebrate genocide here in the United States? And the answer is really simple. By a form of moral blackmail, where the real criminals here are not Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu and the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, the people who are calling women and children who are Arabs animals who must be buried alive with bulldozers, starved to death. No, the real criminals, the people who should be in serious trouble, should go to jail, are the people who notice it, who complain about it, who object to it. Even the people who ever so mildly say, not my business, but I don't want to fund this. Those people are the people who have committed the real moral crimes. Hate to put this up again, but it's such a perfect distillation. Almost everything Mark Levin says, none of it is original. All of it is the kind of most vulgar form of the talking points that everyone else is using. His are just revealing because he doesn't hold back. Here's Mark Levin describing people who complain about the genocide in Gaza. Watch.
Who the hell do you think you are? Who the hell do you think you are to use these blood libels against the Jewish people, that they're indiscriminately murdering Palestinian civilians, when you spew the lies of the Hamas terrorists against the Jews and unleash anti-Semitism in this country around the world like we've never seen before? Who the hell do you think you are? The idea that the Israeli people, that their representatives in the government are committing acts of genocide and war crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza is sickening. It's a blood libel. Joe Biden basically using blood libel after blood libel against the Israelis, that they're killing all these civilians. They're using the Hamas numbers. All of this will be certified. All of this will be sanctified. All the Hitler Youth on our campuses, the Hitler Youth throughout Europe, and the Hitlerians throughout Europe, where the Holocaust started. This is what they're going to take out of October 7th. The enemy is Hamas. The enemy is Iran. The enemy are those who are silent in the face of this kind of genocide. That is by the terrorists.
Keep in mind that Joe Biden did nothing to stop the genocide in Gaza. Of course, he continued to allow the U.S. government to pay for it. His criticisms were mild and, in the end, ineffectual. And even, as we noted, his in-house genocide expert didn't say a word about it. Biden let this happen, just as Donald Trump has let this happen and encouraged it to happen. But anyone who notices it is the real terrorist. So what you have here is the desperate attempt, which appears to be coming to an end, of the people committing the crimes trying to remain the victim of the crime. And it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable as a math question. All murder of civilians is wrong. But since we're comparing, in what place have more civilians been murdered? Israel or Gaza? It's not even close. It's not even close. And again, you don't even need to go there. You just say it's always wrong. It's wrong when you do it. It's wrong when you do it. It would be wrong if I did it. And we're all capable of it, which is one of the deepest lessons of what's happened in Gaza and Rwanda and Buchenwald. Is it the desire to kill groups of other people is not limited to one race or religion. It's a species of the same evil that lurks in every human heart. It's just the way people are. And under certain circumstances, good people can do horrifying things and support horrifying things. And they're probably good people who support the genocide in Gaza because they're under some kind of spell. They don't know what they're saying. They don't understand the implications of it. They don't understand the physical reality of it. Everybody is capable of evil. That's the truth. That's the universal lesson. But supporters of Israel don't believe in anything that's universal. They believe that there's one set of rules for the country they admire and another set for the world. When we do it, it's not wrong. When you do it, it is wrong. In fact, when you complain about our doing it, it's doubly wrong. And that just can't last because it's self-evidently absurd, and it won't last. And anyone who's defended it or helped pay for it will face, at the very least, a reckoning at the end, and maybe sooner, one hopes. But in the meantime, because this is a process of stages, it might help just to establish what happened in Gaza. And of course, we're not really sure even now. There are more journalists operating in Kigali, Rwanda without restriction in 1994 than there are in Gaza today. I knew one of them well, a Western journalist. He was never molested by anybody. The Hutu militia never hurt him. He stood by and watched the whole thing, and he reported on it. That is not the case in Gaza. Hundreds of journalists have been murdered by the Israeli government in Gaza. And the purpose of killing them, of course, was to prevent the rest of the world from knowing what happened there. But some people have been witnesses to this. And we want you to hear the interview that we just did with a man called Nick Maynard, who was one of those witnesses, because we think that his account, which is entirely non-political or even polemical, is instead reliable. He's a physician from Oxford at the university in the UK. He's a cancer doctor. And for a number of years, and he'll explain it in just a moment, he has been in and out of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, and in recent years, particularly in Gaza, both before and after October 7th. And the things he's seen there are so horrifying that they can't really be rebutted. No one can look at the man you're about to see and say, oh, he's a secret member of Islamic Jihad, probably a closet Shiite. No, he's a British cancer doctor in his 60s who does believe in universal principles. You shouldn't kill the innocent because they're innocent. They've done nothing wrong. And when you do, you should be held to account for it. He's not an anti-Semite. He doesn't hate the Jews. Like a lot of Jews around the world, he is horrified by what's happening in Gaza. And he has the bravery to describe it. Cost of living is already making it hard to live here, and it's not getting any better.